Age of retirement, a complicated matter in sports. Throughout the years, if you're a fan, and this is something that when I was on that side, it happened to me as well. How many times have you found yourself saying, well, this person should actually retire? This one should do it also. Have you ever thought thoroughly of how challenging and daring that might be on your side? You see, there's many layers to an athlete's retirement, and we will be talking about this because it is something that psychologically it's very strong. So, when you actually start looking at athletes nowadays, has it happened to you maybe as advancement of your life has happened that you've acknowledged how crazed maybe it was the comments that you were making before? I was watching an interview that Terry Francona and Bruce Bochy in baseball were providing in which they were talking about their comebacks. Now, Terry, 65, Bruce, 70, you might say, well, they're somewhat past the scale and they've already had a great career. But there's even an additional layer to that. True as might that be, of course, the fact that, yes, they are advanced in life, they have the money, they definitely have the championships and whatnot. But it really made me think so much. And I was like, there's layers even to this at this age. And it made me think when I was a kid, when I was much younger, far before I got into the industry and obviously was becoming an adult. It's so funny how we look at life, how we look at age in such a different way. At 36, I now acknowledge the fact of how old it seemed to me someone of that age. I was like, wow, this person seems ancient, if not, right? So that's the funny thing that is not so funny when it comes to the life of an athlete. At 35, the life of an athlete, in many cases, is a fossil age. Yes, that is if you even have the privilege of arriving to play to that age, which is another complication. Because of how tough sports are in nature, there are so many athletes that getting to the age of 35 to be considered that ancient fossil, that might be a privilege that only a few are afforded. When you see the deeds of LeBron James, who at 40 years old, many days seems like the best player on the court and perhaps the youngest, it makes you tickle. When you see Kevin Durant also in basketball at 36, same age as mine, and you observe what he is doing, goes like, wow, it's incredible. He's doing it at 36. Are you posting that to your head? 36, 40, ancient? Well, that's part of the complication precisely. When we start to observe, there are so many different layers of complication. I remember Sammy Sosa, what was it? Was it '03 or '02? '03, I believe. That he became the oldest player to hit 40 home runs in history. And man, that is funny and comical to think that this man was less than 40 and he was doing this, right? So that's the problem. The athlete's age, it's such a paradigm when you actually start observing the complications that come along with it. When you are an athlete, think about it. They start, most of them, not everyone is Albert Pujols, who, by all intents and purpose, what we know is that he started playing around high school. All the data we do have. Most of them actually start since they're youngsters, 4 or 5. They start playing. This becomes their life. So imagine the fact of this element that you've dedicated your life to, right? And then not everyone is going to be, again, LeBron James, who is going to be incredibly gifted of reaching the NBA, immediately being a star. Not everyone is going to be Cristiano Ronaldo and or Lionel Messi, who are still playing, by the way, and are gifted of immediately arriving and making an impact. There's others that have to go through the courses of not only the minor league systems and or whatever adaptation time you need for the league level Kobe Bryant, he was great and everything, but Kobe actually was a bench player at one point who clawed himself to greatness, and so forth. Examples are overdue. Kobe retired at 36, and may he rest in glory, but he was washed. The last 4 years of Kobe's career, totally washed. Think about it. The man retired at 36. And that is the complication with this. It's not easy. And the bigger problem in this is that precisely the productive life that you can still have if you are 35, 36, 40 versus you already being done for in sports. It's a very tough cookie to swallow. Very tough. And you know that cookie swallowed, it's not meant to be. You have to bite them. It's very complicated. Very complicated. So it made me return to the managers, which was what inspired me to actually do this. And here you go. There is a very tough upset when you actually see the case of Terry Francona. Terry Francona was never a successful player, by no means. Bruce Bochy. Both of them have won multiple championships, right? Very successful as managers. How long did it take them? Terry Francona cut his teeth before he saw a championship. Same thing with Bruce Bochy. They didn't just get there and win immediately. So you have to be additional in that math of accounting that these people, and it depends how you want to observe it, because in many professions, the greatest coaches tend to be those players that were not that great. To stay in baseball, Joe Torre, although he was an MVP in one season, but Joe Torre didn't have a career that you can definitely call GOAT status, by no means. Yes, was he beyond serviceable? He was over the level of your typical manager, but you're Phil Jackson's. Phil Jackson, though he actually was with my adored Knicks when they won in 73, Phil Jackson was there. And so forth is the story in any sport you actually look for. There doesn't tend to be top glory associated, top star that becomes a coach. That's, you might actually argue, maybe Coach Prime. I have my reservations about what he has done as a coach at this time. I think there's an overrate factor, so I'm not even going to claw him in as great coach. A hell of a player. I'm not ready to say that he's been a great coach. But yes, that is the thing. You have to sum up that these people, it took them additional time to get there. So, by the time they start seeing glory, yes, is Terry Francona 65? Yeah. Boschy 70? Yeah. But they won their first chips in the last 15 years. So I guess in a way, you could say, well, they could have stayed home with the family. They have the money. They have the everything. But at the same time, they unfortunately failed at their first stride, which was that of being a successful player. So in their second stride, it's like a clean slate for them in so many ways, more than not. I think that in the end, same as it is for athletes, which we should actually be cautious with wishing, be it even if for pity in some cases, unfortunately, the retirement of a player or of a manager. I think, like in anything else, legitimately becomes a thing that is designated for that of the criteria of who is taking. So yes, when we actually think about next time saying you should retire, let's think about the psychological additional layers that exist in retiring and how that, if we were in those shoes, would actually feel. I'm happy always to read you in the comments and definitely looking forward to it. Remember, be happy.